bring us here once more. Day that we haven't seen before, so we're grateful and thankful for that. Let's continue to pray for all of our members, those who are absent, those who are weak, and those who are doing all the prayer for, continue to remember them as well. Get set up here. God bless you, God keep you is our prayer. We're thankful to be here this evening. We're here welcoming you, those who are coming in to listen to our Bible study tonight. Welcome you as well. Apologize for some of the stuff we had last Sunday. We had a huge problem with the streaming, so some people were complaining. Nevertheless, we're here and we're thankful to be here this evening, so we're blessed to be here. If you have your Bibles, turn with us. We're going to be reading, and we're continuing our series this evening from the book of Ecclesiastes. We have been reading chapter by chapter, and tonight we're going to cover chapter 5 in our book of Ecclesiastes. Hopefully you who are listening and other people, you have the notes for our lesson. If you go to our blog page and click on the Ecclesiastes. It says Ecclesiastes notes up in the upper right hand side of our blog page, and you can get the notes. And hopefully we'll get a chance to go over some of the stuff. I didn't get a chance to go over a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do last week and redo the notes, but I'm going to go over our answers hopefully next week. So look forward to that. And we'll take out a little bit of time next week. We wanted to do it this week, but a few things came up, but next week we will definitely do it. We'll go over. So if you get a chance to go back over the notes, try to fill out as many as you can, and we're going to cover something back to you for the book of Ecclesiastes. The book of Ecclesiastes, we've been looking at it. We've said that it's an interesting book in which we are privileged of being able to see how Solomon sees life and life under the sun, and he is giving his observation to what life is about as he has observed it. Remember the story of Solomon, as we mentioned last week. He was the wealthiest man in the world. He was the wisest man in the world at this time, and he is capturing an observation of what life is about as a man who is under the sun. So we're going to look at this life of Solomon, and we're going to kind of get a glance at able to look at life and give his observations and what it meant for a person to live life outside of God. It also gives a perspective of what God gives to life to bring your life into perspective and bring your life into meaning. So tonight we're going to look at chapter 5. He's going to talk about tonight, we're going to look at this subject of what it means to worship God, what the worshiping of God looks like. We're going to talk about how we should see our conversation with God, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the issue of wealth and power and that kind of thing. So we're going to go over a few subjects. Remember, Solomon is writing from a perspective in which he's writing down information, and he's gathering these observations that he has written, and he brings it into a clear perspective of how he sees life under the sun. So let's look at chapter 5 and verse 1, 2, and 3. We're going to look at 3 verses. It opens up with Solomon giving us information regarding the issue of worship. And then he wants to conclude it with talking about some aspects of how we should talk to God, what should we say to God, what do promises look like. So we're going to look at this first verse, and we're going to talk about the issue of worship. And we're going to see how verses 1, 2, and 3 connect in a moment. So I'll read for us verses 1, 2, and 3.
Walk prudently when you go to the house of God, and draw near to hear rather than to give the sacrifice of food, that they do evil.
Let's look at verse 1 for 1 second. We're going to do 2 and 3 also. So the first verse says, walk carefully with, looking at it, or guard your steps when you go into the house of God. When you go to worship God, the first verse, to be careful, and that you should go to the house of God rather to listen rather than to give a sacrifice. So one of the things that bringing us into is the seriousness of worship. The seriousness of worship. How to be serious when we come to worship. So Solomon says there shouldn't be any distractions. You should be coming to worship